5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome everyone to the start of Lowdown. This is the show that wraps up the week in European VC. We hope that you are ready for a rundown with a lot of feisty details because it's only Dan and me today, so we will try and be as rowdy as possible. Am I right, Dan?
Always. That's my natural state. I don't know. If I'm not poking somebody in the eye, I don't know what to do with myself.
Completely agree. Okay, so first up, I want to let you know that we are, of course, as always, doing our EUVC tour that Affinity is kindly sponsoring and making possible for us. And next trip is going to be Engaged Disruptors in October. Going to be a lot of fun. And just to give you some insight, this is the last place that we managed to be rowdy in and had a lot of fun in. So a nice place like that can end up with stupid LPs wearing emerging managers on the back of their neck. So join us for some fun, everyone. We promise you we will be crazy as always. Dan, take us through the first news piece of the week. Former Bolt boss Hayden Wood joins UKVC and plans to build a new energy company.
Yeah, so the backstory here is that Hayden Wood has now joined Giant as a venture partner. Now, people that don't know who Hayden Wood is, he was the young, fresh CEO upstart that started Bolt that needed billions in bailing out from the UK government when all of the energy companies took a shit. The reason I bring this up is that there is a lot of talk about failure in startup, and as a founder, I mean, most of the things I've touched have failed. It's part of what you do. It's what's the phrase? You're either succeeding or you're learning. I mean, ultimately there is no failure. But with this story, okay, so he's moved out sideways from entrepreneurship and founding into as a venture partner for Giant, but there's been so much passive aggressive at best and pure vitriol at worst against this guy for trying and failing and wasting government money. I mean, it's just I don't know how we build a healthy culture, especially in Europe, around failure, which is not just celebrating failure and failure is okay, because failure is in some contexts it's not okay and it's not something that should be purely celebrated, but it's absolutely okay within the context if you don't try and fail, then you're not trying hard enough. So there's this middle line. I think the European scene and especially the UK scene and the UK tech press haven't been massively kind. I don't know the full story of Hayden. I mean, he might be a complete tool. I don't know, but it's just come on, guys, give the guy a break. He's trying new things. Support. Let's give some founders who are trying things and failing ultimately some love and support is all.
I love it. And I think that the next story here tells us exactly the type of failure that we should not be celebrating, but we nonetheless continue to celebrate in the VC ecosystem for some reason. This is, of course, Bolt's Ryan Breslow, who is building now a new startup that is going to be called Love, or is called Love. I don't know if there's not a product yet, if you should call it it's going to be called Love, or that it already is. But I think that this piece has us all going, for fuck's sake. You know, few outside of Breslow's world even knew his name a year ago, and now this controversial founder just keeps racking up more highlights in the media. And Ryan, he's formerly been accused of trash talking competitors and investors on Twitter when that caused him to step down from Bolt, and he's forbid his founding employees to take out their selling shares while he's doing it himself. So I just cannot believe that we have him being, the success of the week almost in startup land, when what he's now building is a fucking DAO that has it's doing stupid stuff, and it's at a 400 million euro valuation, which makes no sense because there's not a product or really anything. Dan, do you have any comments?
I mean, all I will say, just a caveat, is there are always two sides to every story. Having been on the wrong side of the press, if they want to pick up on one aspect out of context and rip you a new one, they will. They are generally, my experience of the press in general terms has been they play very fair and they're just there to do their job. But if you cross them, turn them, or try and pull a fast one, they will rip you a new one. That said, coming back to my original point, is there are always two sides to every story. This guy hasn't covered himself in glory from a number of different angles, and now he's doing some NFT token love project, and he's obviously found himself or is desperately searching for himself on a beach in Shangri-La somewhere and doing this kind of nonsense. It makes me itch, and I just get really irritated.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. Now take us into this story by Mark Zoster. I absolutely love Mark, and if anyone is not following both sides of the table, I think both for founders and VCs, it's very insightful. So do follow Mark Zoster on both sides of the table.
Yeah, so Mark's an ex-founder turned VC. He's written an article titled "What Does the Post-Crash VC Market Look Like?" I think there's some really insightful points that founders should read and understand. Take or leave, as with all of our opinions, take or leave, but have a poke around with the article. It's not particularly long. My two key takeaways were he says, as a fund, you either focus on super size or super focus. And as a VC, it's now time to be patient. So this patient capital, this real business models, treading the boards, not growth at all costs, all stuff that we know and hear, but he breaks it down a little bit and pulls it apart. So the two takeaways from super size or super focus as a fund, and as a fund, be patient. So it will affect how founders pitch and the narrative that they tell to our lot this side of the table. On the super size, super focus, so his fund he talks about going super focus. If you look at, I think Andreessen did a seed round. I can't remember the name of the startup. A seed round, I think, at $19 million, bonkers. And there was also, on the same press release, there was a $20 million Series B round announced. So there you have super size or super focus. Andreessen going hell for leather. What the hell? 350 million into anything that Adam Neumann touches, and gazillions into pre-seed and seed, and obviously what Mark is doing, which is this focus, and that's what we're doing as a fund. Super seed also doing the focus, but we always have, but that's what we're doing. So have a read. We'll put it in the comments. Now
for the next story, and I am very sorry that we keep on going back to Web3 and crypto stuff, but I think it's worthwhile following, especially as
it's a thing.
It's a thing, or is it really?
Well, some of it's a thing. So some of the technologies that come out of Web, I mean, Web3 is a nonsense collective grouping of technologies, many of which don't belong in the pot, depending on your point of view. But the underlying notion of self-control, self-reliance, managing my own digital rights online and giving me the power, and all the DeFi technologies and blockchain, there's something in that. But the coins and the layers and the bullshit and the monkey pictures, all that, but that happens in every bubble. That will go away.
At How to Web, I heard a story about a crypto DAO that really literally sent to investors, you've got 24 hours to invest 2 million at 80 million euro valuation or something like that. And if you don't reply by then you're not in. And they actually ended up raising that round, and then I think it was almost like 14 days later or so, they come back with a 10x valuation, and that round was raised as well. It is absolutely amazing what's going on in that sector, and it's hard to wrap our head around. And I think that's also the numbers of it is just, of course, we as press have to comment on it. But this piece,
I mean, it is when there's lots of money swishing around, humans do stupid shit. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But there's a flip to that, which is we're trying new things. There's a split in that trying new things. There's those that ideologically believe in that action, and there are the followers that just want to greedily encapsulate and leverage and get the greater running. Whereas if I do this, then somebody will come in after me and somebody will go in after them, and that's what creates bubbles. But I think there's something in the trying new things, which, being an old grumpy man, I sometimes need to remind myself that it's really important to try new things. And there is magic in these new things and these new Web3 technologies. It just will not be what we think it is, and it is not, and it will not be as sexy as we think it is. I think is the fact.
That's very likely. At least the reason why we bring this piece with us here is that it is a quite in-depth report that's worthwhile reading. Headline is that crypto M&A activity stays strong despite a bear market, and crypto prices and sentiment down 75% from last year's peak. But even though that's the situation, it doesn't mean that crypto is dead. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep following it, because right now is probably where we will see the more meaningful things surface. And I think this piece is interesting from a perspective of understanding how you can actually exit these deals, and that it's not all just about getting another round of investors in. Dan, let's use this to go to the next piece, which is hustle culture. You've got some commentary here. I think it's more based on what you've been experiencing for the past time than the news piece as such.
Yeah, so this isn't directly, well, there were multiple articles and book launches that I read this week, so it kind of made me think about the phrase hustle culture and how it's now being used as a whipping stick. But it's a great debate to have, but it's become a moniker that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then I was listening to a podcast, and I can't remember the chap's name. It was a Sam Harris podcast. It was one of his recent ones, and he was talking about Gates not taking a holiday in 17 years, and Elon Musk sleeping on the floor when Tesla was running out of cash, and sleeping on the floor in the conference room, and basically working his ass off just to connect the dots and bring the company back to life. And all startups will, especially in the early days, have those near-death experiences. I was speaking with a founder yesterday who's on his 4th near-death experience, or had his 4th, and is the other side, and is doing exceptionally well. And I think it's part of the journey. And from my perspective, hustle culture, the underlying notion of it is you have to work hard and long hours to get results. There is no way round working evenings, weekends, and having a really hard time in when you're building your startup. And it tends to be that first 3 years. I don't know why. Everything I've started, it tends to be that the first 3 years tend to be the hardest, most problematic, the most volatile. And then you get into some form of operational mode, and then you can iterate and experiment, but it's just less volatile. And then there are near-death experiences, Series B, C, D, and substantial business. But it's that first 3 years, I think, in early stage startup that's the most problematic. But you have to work it. You can't have it all.
I think from my side, Dan, it's not hustle culture that's the problem, but it's the hustle porn. Meaning, it's the making it sound like it's sexy and making it sound like this is how things need to be and how you should behave. And if you're not killing it, you're not doing enough. And I think that is where we are pushing people beyond where we should, when we end up saying that it is a great thing to just be sleeping on a mattress in the office all day long and that kind of thing. Because yes, that's what you need to do sometimes. But if you keep doing that for too long, then you will very likely burn out. And I think that it's when we get founders to think that they need to be like that, when, yes, you need to for periods of time, but you also need to be able to step away and breathe. Otherwise, you will run out of steam at some point.
Yeah, I think that's a fair distinction. I think the hustle porn piece is a fair distinction. But you're always going to get guru ninja dickheads who will always... Some guy got ripped a new one on LinkedIn the other day saying, what was he said? He said that the weekends are for the weak or something. And everybody laid into him, which I think was a bit unfair. Just a young entrepreneur going, I'm working weekends and aren't I cool? The hustle porn piece. And he seriously got ripped. But not sad, I don't think it's sad at all. The reality is that it is going to be evenings and weekends, and it is going to be soul destroying at times. And I think you can choose between fitness, friends, work, health, money. There's only so many things, and something has to give. You literally cannot have them all. And I think the worst one is, and the debate that I always get punched in the face over is mumpreneurs, female entrepreneurs, having a baby, running a business, and being a dad of 2 very small children. I want to spend time with my kids. It's a choice, and I have to make a choice away from, I had a broken childhood, and I don't want my kids to experience that. So I've got to balance this 20-hour days with childcare and being an active parent and being around, as you do. I mean, it's that balance. But if you want, anyway, we're talking in the context of, do you want a scalable growth business? And that's not right for everybody. Some people want a 5 million pound turnover business and weekends and work, and they can do the bit of the tough bit, and then they're going to settle into something that's not going to go global, and it's not going to be Tesla, and who gives a fuck? And I think that's absolutely right. But if you do want to, I think contextually, if you want potentially a big global business and you want to scale and you want massive exits and results, then that's that correlates to the amount of difficulty and hard work you're gonna have to put in. And I'm waffling. Sorry, too much.
No, you're not. But I think that what we're doing wrong a bit in especially the news media, because it is in the end the news that are setting the tone for the wide majority of people. Because I think once you've taken VC money, you've said, I go down this path, and you should expect that there's money behind you now that expect you to work.
Yeah, that is a perfect trigger. You are spot on. Yes. That's a perfect trigger. The moment you take VC, the rulebook changes.
Yeah, and that is where I think that our news media is doing a disservice to people, because we tend to make it sound like everyone should be like that. No, you should not. And until you've chosen to go down that path, that is not something you necessarily should glorify. And you should definitely not be out there telling people that they're not doing it right if they're not acting like they were VC backed. You don't have to, right? We're deliberately not taking VC money to back the European VC because it's not the type of business we want to build. I work a whole lot. I do everything I can. I don't really get to do much other than work and be with my family. And that's a decision I've made. But I'm not doing what I would do if I had chosen to take VC money. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a really clean delineation. I like it.
Dan, take us to the next one. Market downturn sparks longest US tech IPO drought in 20 years.
Yeah, super quick. FT article, just doing a bit of analysis on large tech IPOs, and there hasn't been one in 8 months. Last time that happened was .com, and I think there will be a drag effect onto downstream, so through the mid tiers and into the early stage. And it's just to kind of remind myself and other founders and other VCs that we've got this at the moment, this kind of semi-protracted, slightly delayed stage challenge, if you like, where money has to last longer, rounds take longer, rounds might be larger, like I've been seeing larger A post seed, but they're looking for bigger metrics to enable slightly longer burns. Everything has been kind of protracted, and I think there will be other knock-on effects from this top-down 8-month drought. But my sense is that over the next couple of years, this will flip fairly quickly, and before we know it, it's going to be business as usual. And we go, what downturn? What are you talking about? 8 months without an IPO? Who cares? I've just never grown this never business and raised a gazillion from Andreessen, and everything's fine.
It's funny because just this week I spoke to a guy who, he was planning to invest with us in all the funds that we do, but then he had the IPO of his company postponed. So now he'll stick to the VC game that he's in, but can't do LP tickets yet, which is of course it's a good example of the knock-on effects of the IPO window being closed. Yeah. So now I just wanted to go into this because we were at the Expectancy Summit this week, and I think it's very relevant to say that this is actually an event that's worthwhile coming to all across the ecosystem, because there's some very good panels that we don't typically see. We will be putting some of the key quotes into the newsletter that goes together with this week's show. And I just want to say, it's awesome to be hearing the ICB and Andre Bartes from Credo Ventures and Launch Up Ventures going deep on the state of the market in the Central Eastern European ecosystem, and same thing with very successful managers thinking around the power of networks and that kind of thing. But just I'll say stay tuned for this, because I think that it will surprise you, some of the findings there. Next piece is life expectancy. It's dropping in the US, and it is coming from a very awful place, which is poverty.
Yeah, so there were two sides to this story. It was another FT article, but it is all over the web, and we'll post it in the comments. It was about life expectancy in the US is dropping. So you think a developed economy, first world economy, has a life expectancy dropping. Now there is a massive COVID effect, I'm assuming, in the numbers. I haven't dug into the actual stats, but I can't believe that's not part of the story. But it's a thing, and it's directly connected to income. Again, in the States, if you can afford the best healthcare, of course, then you can live longer, and if you can't, then you can't. But the second side of the story was there's an opportunity here, I think, for startups, founders to focus on longevity and health. And I do believe that out of this turmoil and disruption and dislocation, there are going to be some clear winners on the other side. And if I was back on the other side of the desk, I would be looking at, and I will be looking at what kinds of business I can invest in from the health longevity side. But I only do B2B, so it's going to be quite a hard match, but I can find something that slots in there. There's something in this longevity, this health, and I think these kinds of stories will drive that innovation. Keeping in mind the backstory here is demographics. So if you look at China, for example, there are some reports that state that the post 1 billion population that they have at the moment will drop to about 600 million by the year 2050. And if you look at Japan as the kind of the leading indicator here on an older population with no babies being born, because nobody wants to have sex anymore, and so many oldies, and obviously China was the one child law, but Japan is a whole different cultural challenge. But 70% of the population in Japan are over the age of 40, and there's no young people coming through to produce and do stuff. So this global decline in population and demographics will create a whole raft of longevity startups and how to live healthier for longer. And I think it's something that we should keep our eye on. I think as VCs, it's very exciting. And if I was in the founder shoes, I would be looking at those kinds of products and services and how to enable human health and longevity.
That's interesting. Good perspective. Now, take us through this piece. It's stuff that you've been reading, and I just want to hear your commentary. It's we're looking at a screen here that says, here's the good news. If there's a recession, nearly half of the Fortune 500 companies was created during the times of economic stress.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in economic stress being directly correlated with innovation. And as a VC, it's my job to invest in things that are new, that are going to innovate and going to change the world. That's what I think good VCs should do. How can we make the world a better place? And my personal piece is this business automation layer. How can we make business more efficient? I want to do a 1% compound efficiency play in the back office of every large organization. And that will drastically change the world, and it'll help us keep the promises to climate and food production and water if we can get business to work more efficiently. I know there's a double-edged sword to that, like there is to everything, and any powerful thing has a double edge. That said, I'm always intrigued by what happens in downturns and depressions and recessions. And this, I was reading about this Fortune 500 piece, around half of the Fortune 500 was created in a downturn, and then to me think, well, surely that means that half weren't. So I'm not quite sure where the story was. It's like, okay, so some are made in good times and some are made in bad times, but are the ones that were created in downturn, are they more successful? Are they more innovative? So I think there's a story to dig into here, but it kind of made me smile that it was a big article. I was like, well, you're kind of saying half are when it's bad and half are when it's good. It's like, I don't know what that means. So I think I'm going to come back to this at another point, which I think there's some data to dig into.
Next is our segment on VCs of the week. We've got a couple, so let's go through them. First one is Runa Capital. They are moving to Europe. They're moving their headquarters to Europe, to Luxembourg, and some would say it's the scramble to Europe. I think that maybe that's an overstatement of what we're seeing. I think it's more that we're seeing more coming to Europe, but of course it is great for us, and I think that we're just seeing that everyone is now realizing that Europe is the place to be, and we're going to see more and more great things coming. I don't know whether it was because we were in CEE, and for that reason, everyone was very big on speaking up CEE this week at How to Web. But for sure, if I should take that at face value, I was seeing some very big names in the industry saying, well, we are very focused on Eastern Europe. But Dan, I'd love to hear what your thinking is.
Do you know what? The tech press needs to sell the tech press. And the one thing that came out of Donald Trump and his focus on fake news and shouting fake news from the dumbass carrot mouth is that what he's done for me is made me question and challenge every headline and every lead and every story. And I hope other people now look at the press, including the tech press and the mainstream press, with a different lens for that reason, and maybe for other reasons, but challenge and question everything. So whenever it's the press's imperative to get clicks, to sell rag, to do whatever, and everything needs context. There are very few publications that have a balanced kind of contextual view. I think The Week is probably the only. I think I tried it where they'll give the core data and then they'll do the opinion pieces around it. So they're trying to give a constant balanced view. Everything else is skewed. Now with these guys, I don't know. I mean, the scramble for Europe sounds a little bit nonsensical. Moving to Luxembourg is probably a tax dodge. So I mean, I don't know how to unpick this. My only takeaway from this is yes, please more, even though I don't want more VCs in my backyard, I kind of do, because I want the European ecosystem to be healthier and stronger. Yeah. And also don't believe whatever you read. They're my two takeaways.
Yeah. I on what you said about being questioning the news, I think that HBO has made a series on the story behind Roger Ailes and how he created Fox News called The Loudest Voice. And I think that one shows you exactly how the news are not created to actually give us news, but created for business reasons.
The news. Well, Google killed it, didn't they? I mean, you got to blame Google for this, really, because Google, apart from the super right, left wing, apart from the extremities, Google killed the moderate stuff because they took the revenue streams away from publishers. And there's good and bad. Like we were talking about, there's a downside to every powerful new release or new business or new technology. There is always a flip that humans need to absorb in a decent, moral, sensible way, which we don't because we're greedy and stupid. But I think we have to kind of use these times to educate ourselves and learn, because the truth will always prevail. The truth will always come out. I just hate how much damage can be done until people get there. But that's part of our learning and growing as a society. God, I'm deep. Jesus, man, I need to.
Yes, very deep. Your Friday morning. I love it, Dan. Thank you so much for spiking interest in every one of us for the more philosophical parts of life. Next point here is Berlin's Visionaries Club VC boosts its funds with 400 million. That's just beautiful. Not much to comment on there. I'm seeing some folks on a sofa.
Don't call yourself a visionary. Don't call yourself a visionary, please. Whatever you're doing, just don't. It's just wrong. Unless you can tell me where my car keys are, just don't.
I would love to be able to. New European Impact Fund Junction. They just raised a 100 million euro fund for green energy startups. Just another example of the beauty of what's happening in Europe. Right. And now a final one, which is also the beauty of Europe. Two great men in suits launching a 250 million euro fund to back European startups. It is the largest Italian bank that's launching in Intesa Sanpaolo, VC fund, and I don't know what else to say than this is a signal that we are still not out of the waters where VC is being very sexy to everyone who's looking in. Commentary, Dan?
There's lots of money. Somebody else has run a report this week of how much, I hate the phrase, but I'll use it, dry powder. Come on, pirates, let's get the dry powder. And there's a lot of money that has to be deployed. It's being deployed slightly slowly at the moment while people are cautious. But the taps will open. So find if you're raising and you're on the VC track, then map the network. There's lots of money in the system. Map it and then try and get a referral in if you can. If not, then do a very sensible cold campaign to those that you want to work with and work down your list. There's a lot of money in the system. Yeah,
it'll just be a bit slower than before, but I think everyone agrees that it's probably for the better. That's it for today, for this week. We hope you enjoyed the Startup Lowdown and are ready to join us next time. Thanks so much, everyone.